Story of the time I helped my friend propose to his girlfriend in high school. We will name him Steve. So this was the dynamic of our friend group. Me, Steve, his girlfriend, and my best friend at the time. We'll name my best friend at the time Kate. I'm just gonna refer to his girlfriend as his girlfriend. Anyway, Steve and his girlfriend were dating for a while. He was a senior and she was a junior. Their relationship was pretty toxic, not gonna lie. They talked about moving in together, they talked about having kids together, so they were pretty serious. Even though they were serious though, their parents wouldn't let them date. So the only time they could see each other was in school. Anyway, he decided he wanted to make a really big poster that said, "Will you marry me?" and hang it on a wall in school. So Steve and my best friend at the time, I forget what I named her, they stayed up really late one night making a poster. I forget why, but I couldn't go for some reason. But I met them at school really early the next day at like 7. Mind you, school started at like 8:30. And we find the perfect spot to hang the poster. All the way in the back of the school by the locker rooms in between the girls' and the boys' bathroom. So his girlfriend comes in, sees the poster, cries, says yes. But they broke up a few weeks later.
Can you solve this mystery? This is the story of two friends who got into an accident while they were camping. But someone is hiding something, and not everything is as simple as it might seem. All the clues to what really happened are hidden in what I'm about to say. So these two friends, a young man and woman, went camping together in the woods. The man said that he knew his way around because he went camping there all the time. So he ended up leading the way. They arrived at a long rope bridge that they both had to cross to get to the other side. The woman went first, but something was wrong. One of the boards on the rope bridge came loose. She accidentally stepped through but managed to grab the rope just in time to save herself from falling. She shouted to her friend for help, but he said that he was too scared to get on the bridge now. She finally pulled herself up to safety where her friend said, "Are you okay?" She said, "Yeah, I'm fine, but that could have ended up a lot worse." And her friend replied, "You're right. Someone should really fix the ropes on the bridge." What really happened here, and who's the one that's hiding something? Can you solve this mystery?
My husband and I have 2.5 kids. My oldest is 10 years old, my middle child is 5, and I'm currently 5 months pregnant. My 10-year-old is from a previous relationship, and my 5-year-old is adopted. My sister got pregnant unexpectedly, saw adoption as her only choice, and didn't want the baby to go to strangers, so I stepped up. We did everything right. My sister went to therapy to consult on her choice, and I went with her to make sure she was sure, and we did everything that was recommended for adoptive mothers/birth mothers along the way. It wasn't an immediate adoption. I got guardianship, and we built to an adoption, and my sister was involved in the entire process, and again, never expressed any issues in the time it took to finalize. Just over a month ago, I announced my pregnancy. My 5-year-old knows about the biological relationship between her and my sister. Shortly after telling people about the pregnancy, my sister and I arranged to meet up in person in the park. She then told my 5-year-old to give mommy a hug, and my 5-year-old immediately grabbed me, and my sister got shitty about it. I asked her what she was trying to do, and she said that I had a baby on the way and assumed that I was done with the 5-year-old and was going to have a new favorite. I said I don't play favorites and don't know what game.
This is why you should never play hide and seek. A mom decided to play hide and seek with her 2 kids. The mom began counting. Ready or not, here I come. She begins searching the downstairs kitchen because she knows that they hide there every single time. As she's walking to the kitchen, she starts saying, I wonder where they are. She looks under the table and sees they aren't there, which is kind of odd. She knew they were too scared to go into the basement alone, but she decided to check anyway. They weren't there either. She began to panic. The mom then says, "Jordan, Casey, come out now. Mommy's not playing anymore." There was no answer. Panic really begins to set in. She decides to call 911 and reaches an operator. She tells the operator what's wrong, and the operator sends an officer to her house. Once the officer arrives, he says, "Don't worry, we will find them." As she's sitting in the living room, she hears giggling and laughing and hears a closet door slam upstairs. She sprints upstairs and says, "Jordan, Casey, you weren't even sick." She opened the closet door and nobody was there. While all of this is going on, she hears the doorbell ring. She runs downstairs and finds the officer holding Jordan and Casey. The officer says, "They were hiding in the shed out back." Then Jordan looks at mommy and says, "Why were you telling us to stay in the shed?"
Do you know the story behind your zodiac sign? Here's one of the weirdest zodiac sign stories out there. This is the origin story of Capricorn. The story begins when Mother Earth had some serious beef with the gods, enough that she sent a fire-breathing monster named Typhon to fight them. And this is where the forest god Pan comes in. He had legs and horns of a goat. He told Zeus and the other gods to disguise themselves as animals in order to avoid Typhon. And while the other gods were disguised, Typhon approached Pan and was about to attack. So Pan panicked and jumps into the river Nile. Because of this, the lower half of his body, which was underwater, transformed into a fish, while the upper half stayed a goat. So that's why we have this sea goat creature to represent Capricorn, but that's not all. Zeus ended up battling Typhon and had the muscles in his hands pulled out. Pan healed him, which allowed Zeus to defeat Typhon in the end. Because of this, Zeus immortalized the image of Pan in the sky as the constellation of Capricorn. But which zodiac sign should I talk about next? Follow to see the rest of the series.
My husband and I have a 3-year-old son together, and there has never been any doubt that my husband is the father. Last week, he came to me and said for the last few months he had been plagued with this anxiety that our son is not his. They don't look identical, but they definitely share similar features, and I see my husband whenever I look at my son. I was obviously blindsided by this and asked him to explain why he thought that he wasn't the father, and he couldn't really provide an answer other than a gut feeling. He asked me for a paternity test, and I said hell no. He said he could just do it without my permission, and I told him if he did that, I would never forgive him. My husband does not have a history of anxiety, but he did lose his job back at the start of the pandemic. I thought he was just stressed out, and I told him if he went to therapy and maybe started taking some anti-anxiety meds that I would consider getting the paternity test. He got upset and said that once he got the results of the test back, he wouldn't be anxious anymore. He again threatened to just get the test without my permission, and I told him that this would end our relationship. My friends and family are divided over this. Some think I should just take the test, and others are saying he's being insane and that if I cave to this, there's just going to be something else. I think there's something more serious going on here, and I need some neutral perspective. So what would you guys do?
Do you know the story behind your zodiac sign? In this series, I'm going to draw each zodiac sign and tell you their backstory. First, we have the story of Gemini, which focuses on immortality and the strong bond between siblings. So we all know that the sign of Gemini is made up of 2 twins, but these 2 twins actually have a name and a pretty interesting backstory. Their names were Castor and Pollux, who both had the same mortal mother named Leda, but they had different fathers, making one of them immortal and the other one not. Castor's father was the king of Sparta, and Pollux's father was Zeus, making Pollux immortal. Castor and Pollux had a really strong bond together, but Castor was unfortunately injured and passed away in battle. Pollux was inconsolable after Castor's passing and didn't want to ever be without his brother, so he decided to go to Zeus for help. Zeus decided that rather than taking away Pollux's immortality, he would just make Castor immortal too, and allow them both to be transformed into the constellation of Gemini so they can live together forever. This story, out of all of the other zodiac sign stories, does have kind of a happy ending. Which zodiac sign should I talk about next? Do you know the story behind your zodiac sign? Today we're going to talk about the origin story of Leo, which begins when Hera decided to be a little bit toxic to her husband Zeus by sending a powerful mystical lion to live in a cave in Nemea, which is where Zeus's shrine was. So anyone who wanted to worship Zeus would have to get through this ferocious lion. After that, Hercules was actually tasked to defeat the lion and take its pelt to King Eurystheus. But of course this was no regular lion, because it was the son of the fire-breathing monster Typhon, and it was more than twice the size of a normal lion. And most importantly, its skin was indestructible. So Hercules goes into the cave and blocks off an entrance, but he soon realized something was wrong. He couldn't actually take the pelt off because the lion's skin was indestructible, so any tools that he brought was useless. So he had to use the lion's own paw. Eventually he succeeds, brings the pelt back to the king, but then decides it would be better to keep it as his own armor. Afterwards, either Zeus or Hera immortalized the ferocious lion in the sky as the constellation of Leo. But which zodiac sign should I talk about next? Follow to see the rest of the series.
Here's something fun. When you're in a long-term relationship, you'll often find yourself doing this thing with your partner where you'll say, when we have kids, I hope they have this trait of yours. And today my husband was like, I hope our kids will be as resilient and determined as you. When I was 11 years old, I got in a fight with my mum when she was picking me up from school, and I was being so rude that she wanted to teach me a lesson and scare me a little bit, so she said, you can find your own way home, left me outside of my classroom, got in her car and drove off. Now realistically, she was just doing the block and was going to come back and pick me up, hoping that I would be apologetic. But I wasn't. I was very stubborn and was like, I can find my own way home, and I decided to run home. I in fact sprinted from the school grounds and ran into a close family friend who offered to give me a lift, which I accepted, and I got home by my own means. Now my mum did do the block and not only came back to me not being where she left me, but to one of my friends saying, yeah, I saw her get in the car with some weird guy. Imagining my mum's soul leaving her body that day is enough for me to not ever want kids, let alone kids like me.